I can't believe it. Our first ever episode of the TalkSense Podcast. Vicki, can you believe it? We're here. We've been thinking about this, talking about it, planning it for so long, and now it's actually here.
Oh, I can't. Yeah, we've definitely been talking about this for what, 12 months or something now. And it's finally happening. You finally convinced me to do it.
It's so exciting. We've got so many brilliant people to talk to, and I think I really enjoy it. Like, I think it felt like a big step forward, but actually it's going to be really good fun, and we're going to learn so much along the way, aren't we?
Yeah, definitely. So as of this moment, we've pre-recorded a few interviews with people and podcasts that we've done ourselves and with parents that we're working with. So we kind of know like what's coming, but you listening won't know what's coming, but we're going to tell you a bit more about it in this chat today. But yeah, really exciting to share some thoughts of other people's and our thoughts about how to support your children and your students out there. So yeah, we've got some real goodies to come.
We thought it'd be a good idea just to start with saying a bit more about us so people know who they're listening to, and also how we met, because we've not known each other that long, have we? So I thought we could tell the story of how that's come about, and just a bit about like what we're doing out there in the big wide world and what we've got planned. So why don't you start by saying what you do, Vicki, and who you are?
Yeah, definitely. So, I always say that I don't have an accent, but lots of people tell me that I do. So, as you can probably tell, I'm from the northeast of England. I live just outside of Newcastle, County Durham area. And I'm a children's occupational therapist. So I have worked as an occupational therapist for around about 20 years now, which always makes me feel incredibly old when I say that. 18 of those years in the NHS, which I absolutely loved. Got so much experience, developed so many skills, just working with thousands of families, which, as you know, Jo, it's just incredible to have that experience of working with such a wide range of families. And that's definitely made me the therapist that I am today. So I'm incredibly proud of that. And then the last two and a bit years now, I left the NHS and I've been working online predominantly, which is very different to traditional therapy and how it works. And I'm sure we'll talk about that a little bit more as we go through today and certainly in the podcast as well. But yeah, working with families, predominantly children with sensory processing difficulties, that's definitely where my passion lies. I know it's a huge frustration for families and parents and professionals as well, that it's really difficult to access support for children with sensory needs. So I definitely wanted to plug that gap and make sure that I could reach as many families as possible and give that support. Because as we know, and we'll definitely be talking about, it just makes such a massive difference when we can support those sensory regulation needs. So that's me. I'm also a mum to two young girls. I've got a 5-year-old and an 8-year-old at the point of recording this today, which, that's just gone over in the blink of an eye as well. So mum and OT, juggling parenting and work life as we all are.
Amazing. Gosh, I can't believe we're 5 and 8. That's just, where's that time gone? Oh my goodness. So
I know, gosh, yes.
Nothing
makes you feel older than being a parent.
Yeah, exactly. I reckon that we must have met about 3 years ago, because I reckon your eldest was about 4 or 5 when we first started working together, would you say?
Yeah, I think it was before I had left the NHS that we met. Yeah, definitely. But yeah, we can definitely talk about that because it's a nice story. But tell us about you as well. So what's your background, Jo? Explain to everyone where you've come from.
So I am a mum too. I'm a mum of 4. My children are getting very old now. I've got a 21-year-old, a 19-year-old, and just turned 16-year-old and a 9-year-old. So very busy mum. And I'm a speech and language therapist. I qualified back in 1999, I think, straight from university, straight into the NHS, and worked there for just shy of 20 years. And then I just decided that I wanted to give things a go on my own. I'm really an entrepreneur underneath the speech therapy, and I always had this itch of like doing things myself. So I made baby food and sold it when my son was little, and I did classes for children with speech delay, and I opened a nursery in an area that was identified as having a high speech and language need, and I ran a nanny agency for a little while. That was not one of my strongest points. So I've always had like other things going on. Like I've always enjoyed that side. And then it got to the point, I had a tent business where we put party tents, and it just got to the point where I wanted to bring both worlds together, use my skills and just run a business. So I didn't even really know what I was going to do or how I was going to do it, but I left the NHS and started working online. And in 2020, during the lockdown, when everybody was at home, we were all kind of completely in our homes, I started to deliver through Facebook free challenges, and then sold into a boot camp for parents where they could come. And I got up 3 times a week at 7 a.m, delivered the content, and everybody came along. It was a really great time because we were all kind of just in our homes, and it just has gone from there really. The program developed and I kept on building, and I do everything through online. So whereas in the NHS, the children were my clients, and I wrote about the children, and I had files on the children, and I wrote reports on the children. Now I see it that the parents are my clients. Like if I fill the parents' cup, that will overflow and flow to the children. So I don't work directly with children. I empower the parents to do the best that they can for their children.
Yeah. And I can't really remember exactly how we met, but I feel like that might have been the thing that pulled us both together, because that's not common, is it, for therapists to have the parents as their clients, so to speak. You know, traditionally it is the children are, you know, on your caseload, so to speak. So I'm pretty sure that was probably one of the things that we were like, oh, we're both doing something really similar, and we've never met another therapist that's done this before. And I think we just got talking online, and just really started sharing information, didn't we? So you had like your boot camps, and I started doing an online course for parents to learn about sensory processing, and then that evolved into a membership. So similar to the boot camp that you run, I've got a similar membership for sensory, supporting parents with some practical strategies to get started with at home. And then really quickly, we started referring families to each other and voice messaging each other. Can you just help me with this? And have you got any thoughts about that? And then it was kind of like a light bulb moment where we were just thinking, actually, this just does not make sense, like working separately. Of course, we made like massive impact on those families, but the families that we started working with together, like, I don't think even we realized the impact that we could have with that joint working, but we have, haven't we? And it's just been such a lovely process to evolve from it. We've now got some lovely families that we joint work together one-to-one with. And we've got some lovely interviews coming up, talking with some of those families and interviewing some parents. But yeah, is that how you remember it kind of all panning out?
Yeah, totally. And I think, you know, or as a speech therapist in the NHS or before meeting you, I kind of knew like sensory was important in a theoretical way. And like there was some speech therapists that had done like some sensory training, and you know, there was some sensory stuff happening, but it was always really peripheral. And I think that as soon as I kind of started to work with you and chat to you and ask you questions, it kind of just became like this big alarm bell of like, but you can't do the speech therapy if you've not got the sensory. Like those two things are just totally intertwined. And And we kind of give information to each other's boot camps and memberships and things, because the parents need that. They need all of that information. And I think now, like really speech therapists should never be working without that kind of sensory backup, and speech therapy is hard to come by, but occupational therapy and sensory integration therapy or anything, even an assessment, is like hen's teeth, isn't it? Like, it's so difficult. So I imagine the speech therapists up and down the country who are, maybe they know that is impacting on the children, but they don't know enough to do anything, and they don't know where to get that support from. And I think we're proving that when you work together, the impact is like so much more. And these kids that I might have thought, oh, I'm not sure what progress I can make with them, are like blowing us away every day, because when you get those strategies right and in place, they just really kind of, everything clicks for them, everything clicks for the parents, and everything clicks for each of us. It's like a perfect kind of coming together, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. But I think it's like similar for me as well, though, because although I've worked with speech therapists in the past, again, it is quite disjointed unless you have joint therapy clinics in the NHS, which you do get in some places, but it is a bit of a kind of postcode lottery in terms of what you get access to in your area. But it is still, the speech therapist does their sessions, the OT does their sessions. And my, I guess, understanding of speech and language therapy has totally changed since working with you as well. I probably thought very much like maybe parents and professionals listening to this now, maybe teachers, that it's for like speech sounds and, that kind of the things that are more obvious, if you like. And almost, even those non-speaking children that you and I have had massive impact on, that seems to be like just the kids that just flourish when OT and speech therapy work together. But even for those children, part of me, even as a therapist, would think, oh, well, what would a speech and language therapist do? Like, if they're not actually talking? And I know that you've taught me loads about, what we can do for those kids and how we can just open up their world and their communication, which has just been amazing. And actually working with you has really helped with the regulation side. So even though you're saying, you need me to help you to do your bits, you've really helped me to change the way that I work as well with families, because yes, I'm looking at regulation and helping children to feel more focused and calmer and able to engage in play and social activities and learning activities. But actually, if you don't consider the language and communication element to it, you can just not hit it right. You just sometimes can just miss the mark. And we always laugh because I think we're just like the perfect partners, in that I describe myself as really greedy and I describe you as just really patient, and we kind of bounce off each other. Like, I'm always looking for the next thing. Like, what are we going to move on to? Like, how are we going to take that little glimmer of what we're seeing in a child, and how can we evolve that into a goal, and how are we going to achieve that? And I just love how you rein me back. And you're saying, just be patient, Vicki, let's just. And I think that's really good, because we just bounce off really nicely with each other. And when I'm working on the regulation, sometimes it's really nice for you to be saying, actually, Vicki, you're talking too much, or we're asking the parents to say too much in that moment, because obviously I've got my OT and my sensory hat on, I'm focused on that. And then I might be saying, oh, and sing a song when you're doing this, or say that. And you're like, just hang on a second, Vicki. I think it just works so well.
Yeah, when you're talking, I'm like thinking, we've both evolved, and like we've almost created like a different genre of therapy, because I've taken what you know and you've taken what I know, and it's kind of come together. And although we've got different focuses, it's very much together. And I think that, it's amazing. And like, we have the absolute honor of kind of watching these children evolve in front of our eyes. And I think that, I've never had that before as a speech therapist. And I think that it just shows what these children are capable of. And, I'm always saying, if we get it right for them, they can just start to unfurl and show us what they can really do. And we just see that every day, don't we? Like, we're always like, God, can you believe this?
I know,
like,
I know.
Video of so it's like,
it's so good. Like, it feels like we're chasing the kids now rather than we're trying to keep up with them to move them on, as opposed to sometimes in therapy you kind of thinking, what can I do to help this child to move forward? Like you feel like you're always on a bit of a back foot and kind of stretching and trying to make things happen, facilitate things to happen. But just with this approach that we use, like the kids are just showing us what they can do and how amazing they are. And actually, we are following their lead and they're leading their own therapy. We're just kind of in there tweaking it and, guiding things in different directions and just supporting the adults. But the kids just know exactly what they need and how to get it. It's just we're the detectives just helping to pull it out.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's so true. It's so true. And, you would have thought, even probably for me, and I bet you would have been the same, like, before I started all of this, it's like, online therapy, like it's never going to work. Like you've got to be hands-on with the children. You've got to be in the same room. You've got to be, home visits are probably the pinnacle of what you can offer and deliver. Yeah. And actually, I don't know about you, but I mean, there's the thing of we're together, but even without that, like I feel like I'm doing the best therapy that I've ever done, because we get to see kids on video, like, so the kids, we see hours of the kids with like little 2-minute videos that we're watching all the time, and we're not present. The parents are not tidied up, ready for us to come. No one's like sat on ceremony. I remember like doing home visits and people like, you went in the formal room at the front of the house or whatever, because people were like anticipating this visit of a professional. There's none of that. You just get to see. And sometimes parents can be a bit shy at first, but when we're like, oh, it's fine, we don't care about the washing in the background, like we're not even looking at that, like we just get to see that what's happening in real time, which gives us like way more insight into what that child needs, what the parent needs, and it just is better. And I don't think I would have ever believed that could be possible.
No, definitely not. It's just so much more natural. Like the videos that we get sent from families where, we might be asking to have a look at their mealtime setups, for example. And, we're always like, just prop the phone up in the corner of the room. And, yes, we're looking at the child eating, or, the position that they're sat in or what's happening, but actually we're looking at the family dynamics. And certainly from my perspective, one of the big things to help with sensory and regulation is looking at the environment and how it's all set up. But there's nothing like being able to just see a family in their natural environment, just relaxed and kind of chatting away around that mealtime table, just to kind of say, oh, what about if you just sit at that side instead of that side? Or how about if we just swivel the chair around? Or you can just, these little changes, they just make massive impacts. And honestly, like, I've never been able to do that before. Like looking back, I just think, oh, like it's a bit cringy when you think of some of the generic advice that I've handed out over the years, and you can almost feel the eye roll from the parents when they're like, oh, another piece of paper with a list of things to try, and then, oh, that we've already tried a million times before. Whereas it's just totally, like, we never hand out like a list of things, it's just in the moment kind of strategies that we're working. It's just like a really dynamic process and just works so well.
And it's great for the parents too, because we're taking information from them and we're listening to them and we're helping them to work out the problem solving. We love it when the parents are beginning to see like, oh, well, do you think I should do this? And you're like, yes, you're getting it now. Like you're on your own 2 feet, because we're not here to kind of take over the process. We're here to empower the parents. And I think they really feel it. And the children benefit from that, because the parents suddenly it's almost like you see the parents come to life, having had a child that they just didn't know what to do with. They felt really let down by the system. They were scrabbling around trying to get people to listen to them, and then suddenly you're there and you're listening and you're consistently showing them how well they're doing, and like they rise up and they're like, I've got this now. Like, it's not that I have to be a therapist, I can just be a parent and I can make a massive difference to my own child. That's all I've ever wanted to do. And so yeah, for me, like, the parents kind of journey is equally as kind of heart wrenching as watching the children evolve. So yeah,
definitely. And then we kind of then went on to evolve even more because once we had the parents making all of this massive progress, then the kids were going into nursery and into school, and were not doing the same things that we were recommending for home. And we just started noticing this such a difference between what a child could do at home versus what they could do at school when we, were given different advice to home versus what they might be doing at school. So for any teachers, teaching assistants, childcare providers listening to this podcast, this is also for you as well, because we will be sharing lots of strategies and ideas for the school environment as well, not just at home, because we're really keen that there's that consistency across both areas. So Jo and I got our thinking caps on as usual with our million ideas running through our heads, didn't we? And we decided, actually, we could do this same thing for schools and for nurseries. And so we kind of evolved a program called Nest, didn't we? And this was for nurseries and schools. And this is just like growing week on week. At the minute, we're actually working really hard on that program and making it super special. Like, it is gonna be a really special program for teachers and staff to have access to. And we can definitely talk more about that as we go through the podcast. But yeah,
the big thing for me was realizing how tough it is for teachers and classroom assistants, and watching the parents evolve and being able to make such a difference, and then children being in schools where they maybe had a handout, or they maybe had some suggestions, or they were told to do Makaton, or they were told to do visuals, and actually those things are not the solution for that child. They're maybe part of the things we might use, but they're not what's going to make the biggest difference to that child. And having owned a nursery and seen that it's not a million hours in the day, like, there's not much time to take out an individual and do some therapy, or take out a group of children and do something, and that actually you can have a huge impact just by not doing any of that, just by tweaks in the environment or ways you interact with the children. And we realized that teachers were missing that information. Like, you can buy a program where you can learn about the processes of sensory development, or you can buy a program where you can train yourself to know about speech and language development, but the actual doing and the actual how do I fit this into my busy classroom and my busy life and actually do those children a good service, not just babysit them, was missing. And so we wanted to take it and make it much more functional, much more, give them the knowledge, but not huge amounts of knowledge. No one needs a degree in occupational therapy. Do this. You need the right bit of knowledge and the practical things to do in the moment. And that's where Nest kind of grew from, kind of changing it. And we've worked with special schools, international schools, mainstream schools, and they all just can take so much from it, because it goes beyond what anyone else is teaching out there. Like, we're teaching it in a different way, and I think that it's so needed. And it's amazing, and we're revolving it further, so we'll tell you more about that at another point.
Yeah, as you can tell, we're very excited about it.
You're so passionate. We are so passionate. We can't help it.
I know. So, I mean, yeah, we could talk for hours, couldn't we? But I think what would be really helpful is to give you guys listening just a kind of overview of what to expect from this podcast, what we're going to be bringing to you and providing, so that you can follow and you can listen to the podcast and know what to expect. So what's some of the exciting things that we've got planned, Jo?
So we wanted to bring a bit of a mixture. So we've got some professionals, some parents who have evolved into professionals and are working in the space. So we're looking at people that bring different skills, look at this stuff from different eyes. And we're having chats around that. We've got some parents that we've worked with to come and tell their stories, to tell you, the things that have been really tough for them, because this journey can be really difficult. And we wanted people that were there, to give that side of the story. And we are also going to be doing some podcasts ourselves, because as you can probably tell, we love talking about this stuff too. And then we're going to do a behaviour navigator where you, the listener, can send in your queries. So it might be a child you're working with, it might be your own child, it might be a child in your family. You can send anonymously or with your name your query, and we will talk about it and help you problem solve it through the podcast, so we can get that interaction as well. Check out below the podcast for the email address to send that to, and just send your query and we will pick one every few weeks to go through and talk to you about. In the show notes, there'll be all the information about how to get in touch with us, where to find us individually, where to find Nest. And our inboxes are always open. So if you want to message us, please do so. If you've liked this podcast, please subscribe, like, share. Those are the little tokens. Like when you go into a coffee shop and you buy a coffee, you support that business. When you listen to a podcast, if you press share, subscribe and make a comment or something, that's the little thank you, because that's what the internet cares about, that anybody listening, whether anyone cares about it. And if you do, then it'll just get sent out to more people. It won't cost you anything monetary, but it will help us grow this podcast and reach more families. So if you know anybody that's interested, please do share it, and I look forward to seeing you on future episodes. Take care for now and see you again. Bye bye.